As twilight paints the sky with bruised purples and faded reds, you stand at the edge of a broad, flat space. It feels almost wrong, like a dropped note in a song you've heard 1,000 times before. Here, nestled between the great river and the foothills of a low rise, the land is giving up its secrets. Carefully, the first trickle of water you saw was just a thread, but as the sky darkened, it became a stream. Now, as you step forward, it gushes into a small lake, or rather it used to. Centuries of neglect have turned the basin into a swampy morass choked by trees and vines, but you can see that underneath the tangled mess, there's still a perfect circle. Artificial, geometric, impeccable. You aren't sure how old it is. How many seasons of leaking, of children splashing, of fish being caught and stories being swapped beneath its shade. All you know is that this circular pond was made by hand, just like everything here. For 2,000 years, this has been North America's greatest unsolved mystery. If you were standing at Poverty Point in 1897, you would have been surrounded by mounds, ridges, and a circular pond. Everything else had been lost to time and development. But in a single season, archaeologists uncovered the largest earthwork structure in North America. You wander around the site, trying to picture ceremonial dances, solemn burials, and feasts beneath the oaks. In the early 1900s, it was believed that Native Americans couldn't possibly have done this. So the theory went that it must have been Spaniards or even Egyptians. By 1960, researchers were more open-minded. The idea of Cahokia, a large trading network centered in modern-day Illinois, helped explain similarities between cultures scattered across the Mississippi Valley. Still, it wasn't until 1992 that archaeologists found conclusive evidence of daily life at Poverty Point. The beauty is startling, the way ancient Native American cultures often understood geometry and design. But it's easy to forget that these places weren't built in a day, but over hundreds of years. Each generation adapting, changing, and growing. They are time capsules of culture, architecture, art, and trade. In some ways, Poverty Point is more intact than the ancient cities you've visited before. In other ways, it's achingly incomplete. The people who lived here left behind no written language, no detailed sculptures, no pottery painted with pictures. Even the most skilled archaeologists can only imagine what life was like here. So take a deep breath and use your imagination. Breathe in the wet earth and damp wood smoke. Let your senses guide you back 2,000 years. In front of you, a house of poles and palm leaves offers shade to 2 men and 2 women. Their posture is confident, their muscles defined from years of labor and play. Their faces have sharp angles, straight noses, and determined mouths. They're smiling at something one of them has said. Soon another man will join them, then a boy. They all speak in the same language, but their thoughts drift as far as the horizon. They have plans and hopes that belong only to them. At night, a symphony erupts. The barking of dogs, the buzz of insects, a chorus of frogs, and the lonely call of an owl. The stars seem close enough to touch, their cold light mingling with the steam rising from the earth. In the dark, you can smell wood smoke, decaying logs, and sweet dreams. If you listen closely, you might hear the ghost of a lullaby drifting through the tall grass. Now you awake to a sun that's already high in the sky, you were right. There won't be any breakfast. Your mouth tastes like dirt and disappointment. Well, here goes nothing. You think you're supposed to be helping, but no one's asked you to do anything. You wonder if the people here have noticed that you aren't like them. Do they know you're not one of them? They have baskets and dirt and the patience of saints. You have questions and curiosity and an unfortunate tendency to break things. You decide to find out why this place is called Poverty Point. The answer you discover is nobody knows. This was a great city, a bustling cultural hub. Who named it Poverty Point? Probably someone who didn't live here. Maybe someone who hadn't seen all that was hidden beneath the ground. Poverty Point thrived for centuries, then it was abandoned. Nobody knows why. The observatory was destroyed, the earthworks fell into disrepair, the houses collapsed. Perhaps the people who lived here knew something was coming, something that would change everything. Maybe they could feel it in their bones, a darkness gathering in the distance. They gathered what they could and walked away from the only home they'd ever known. What happened next is unknown. Did they build new lives somewhere else? Did they invent new traditions and ceremonies? Did they teach their descendants about the place they once called home? Someday we may find answers to these questions. But for now, their story ends here. It's dawn. The sky is a canvas of purple and pink. Birds sing and the air is fresh. You haven't slept? Not really, but you're not worried about it. You are filled with purpose. You need to go home, not to pack and prepare, but to return to the exact moment you arrived, because time is a river, fluid and fast. And you need to get out of it before the current pulls you under. As you watch the sun creep higher in the sky, you realize you've come to the end of your journey. You should go, but a part of you wants to stay. This place is beautiful, haunting, unforgettable. And you know you'll carry a piece of it with you for the rest of your life? You've learned so much here about history, about yourself, about the power of human ingenuity. You've experienced a way of life that's all but vanished. And you've met people from a time gone by. They were real people with hopes and dreams, joys and sorrows, just like you. And you know that even though you're leaving, you'll never truly go. The spirit of Poverty Point will live with you always. As you say goodbye to the people and places you've come to know, you feel a sense of peace. It's a feeling you've never felt before. It wraps around you like a blanket on a cold night, and you know that you'll treasure it always. Time travel has taken its toll on you. You're tired, hungry, and the clothes you're wearing are starting to fray. You could stay here, but you know you can't. It's time to go home. As you step back into your own time, you take one last look at the world you've just left behind. You see the people waving goodbye, their faces etched with sadness, but also hope. They know that even though you're leaving, you'll always be a part of their story. And as you walk away, you hear the faint sound of their voices. They're singing a song of farewell, a song of gratitude, a song of friendship, and you know that you'll never forget it. Here's what we know about prehistory in North America. We know there were humans here. 15,000 years ago, while the rest of the world was busy making cave art and thinking about stuff, North America produced Folsom, points which are beautifully crafted spearheads, the kind of thing you don't lose in a fight unless you're holding it. We know a lot of those early people didn't stick around. They packed up and headed south when the ice sheet rolled back and revealed a continent that looked very different than it did before. But we know that somewhere along the way, some people stayed put. And over time, they grew into the societies that would build Poverty Point. Welcome to this place. Today, Poverty Point is in Louisiana, specifically the extreme northeastern part of it. But when the people first arrived here, it wasn't Louisiana. It was just here. Back then, the Mississippi River ran a much different course. What is now a narrow stretch of water barely wide enough to fit a barge was once a broad channel. Over 2,000 years, the river has moved westward by about 60 miles, carving away at the eastern end of the state and dropping its silt and sediment right here. This corner of Louisiana is actually one of the youngest pieces of land in the United States. It was literally underwater not too long ago. So, in the grand scheme of things, the history here is just getting started. You explore the earthworks. Of the 3 mounds, only one remains intact, and you visit it first. Mound B, it's called. The archaeological report notes that it measures 74 feet high, 484 feet long, and 292 feet wide at its base. The summit is rounded like an old woman's belly, and you climb it slowly, carefully. Once you reach the top, the view is stunning, though most of it is obscured by trees. To the north, you can just make out the sprawl of West Carrollton Parish. That's the closest thing to a city for miles. To the east, the river curves toward the horizon. And to the south, there's that second mound, Mound A, low and long. You might not be able to tell it's a mound from this angle. It could just be a hill, but you know what? That's fine. For the people who built this place, the distinction would have been clear. Each mound has its own story to tell, and you're eager to hear them both. The first inhabitants arrived here between 1700 and 1100 BCE. What drew them here? Was it the river with its bounty of shellfish and fish? Was it the proximity of the Red River to the north, another source of food and a highway of sorts? Was it something about the land itself, its fertility, its openness, its gentle slopes? Whatever it was, they settled in and stayed, building their lives, planting their crops, hunting the herds that passed through. And you're not alone. In the distance, you spot another car and decide to walk toward it. As you approach, you see it's occupied by a young couple. The woman's pregnant. She points to a butterfly fluttering nearby. Both smile and nod. It's a hot day. The woman takes off her jacket and lays it on the grass. She smiles at you. You smile back. Time passes. The silence isn't empty. It's filled with the buzz of insects and the distant calls of birds. Eventually, the couple packs up and leaves. You continue exploring. The third and final mound is the least impressive, partially destroyed, partially covered by water. It's almost sad. You hesitate, not knowing what to do next. Then you head back to the parking lot. On the drive home, you pass the town of Ebarb. Its main drag consists of a closed Dollar General, a shuttered gas station, and a smattering of pickup trucks. You stop for gas and wander into the general store, hoping to find someone who can answer your remaining questions. Behind the counter, a middle-aged woman sorts through receipts. She looks up briefly, then goes back to work. You fumble for words. What was life like here? How did they build these things? Where did they go? She shrugs. Sorry, can't help. You pay for your gas and drive away? Back in the relative comfort of your car, you review the facts. Poverty Point was huge, an urban settlement with a sprawling network of homes. It was remarkably well organized, featuring geometric streets and sophisticated drainage ditches. The people were experts at their craft, coiling large storage jars capable of holding 100 gallons. They were masters of symmetry. Look at this necklace made of tiny, perfectly round beads. They were connected to people hundreds of miles away, trading exotic goods and perhaps ideas. Their culture lasted centuries, producing thousands of artifacts and possibly employing thousands of people, yet nobody knows what happened to them. You have a sudden urge to ask the woman in the gift shop. You turn around, but she's gone. As you reach the parking lot, you notice a family taking a selfie. In the photo, the adults are solemn. The kids are bored. You snap a quick picture of the sign, then get in your car and drive away. Over the millennia, all sorts of legends have grown up around Poverty Point, Native American. Folklore speaks of a great flood that wiped away entire cities and claimed countless lives. The French explorer Hernando de Soto reported finding large earthen pyramids during his travels in the 16th century. Some historians believe the site was occupied by a lost tribe of Israelites. Others think it was the legendary home of the biblical Queen of Sheba, but none of these stories can be proven. All we have are the mounds and the artifacts and the endless questions. You stare at the traffic light. What happened here? Why did it end? What happened to the people? You aren't sure you want answers. Part of this site's charm is its mystery. Maybe the best we can do is marvel at the complexity of human life and the resilience of human nature. Maybe the biggest revelation is how little we truly understand about our ancestors and the lengths to which they went to survive. You arrive home. Your neighborhood seems alien, the houses too close, the streets too noisy. The mounds will still be there tomorrow. They've endured for 3,000 years. A few more won't hurt. When you finally realize the next day has already started, it's going to be hard to leave. And just like that, you're back. Thanks so much for tuning in. Did you enjoy today's bonus experience? Now, if you happen to be listening to this on the day it was released, that means we're both awake before sunrise. Well, unless you're on the other side of the world, in which case, hey, good morning anyway. Do you ever lie awake at night and contemplate the universe? I do, so when the opportunity arose to spend a little more time at Poverty Point, I jumped at it. So, here's another night alone at Poverty Point. I hope you brought a pillow because we're gonna need one for this. You're not entirely sure how long you've been lying there. The sun has shifted again, less overhead now, more of an angle, painting long shadows across the ridges like sleepy brushstrokes. The insects have quieted. Or maybe your ears have just given up. You sit up slowly, brushing clay dust from your clothes that don't exist yet, and wander toward the perimeter. It's quieter here, less work, more watching, observing, thinking. You follow an older man as he walks a path along the outer edge of the 6th ridge. His gait is slow, but purposeful, like someone who knows where he's going even if he's in no hurry to get there. You trail behind silently. The air smells of river reeds and crushed grass, with just a trace of charred wood, peaceful, hypnotic, like a history book if it were made out of sun-warmed linen. The man eventually stops at what appears to be a raised earthen platform smaller than Mound A, but still intentional. He places a smooth, flat stone at its center, says something you don't understand, then turns and walks away. You stay. There's something about the spot. Elevated slightly above the surrounding landscape, it offers a gentle view of the ridges curving out like ribs around a sleeping heart. You can imagine gatherings here, people sitting cross-legged, someone standing to speak, arms outstretched in the golden light. You think you hear a drum beat? Or maybe it's your own pulse. You pick up a small, discarded bead carved from red jasper, smooth, warm from the sun. You wonder if it meant anything, or if it was just decoration, a gift, a token, a lost trinket from a child's game. You'll never know. And honestly, that's part of the charm. A gentle breeze picks up, stirring the tall grass. You follow it toward the river at last. You can hear it now, loud and close, murmuring like an old storyteller trying to stay awake mid-sentence. Trees thin out, and suddenly there it is, wide, brown, slow. A prehistoric ribbon weaving pastime itself. You crouch at the edge, and the water gurgles a sleepy welcome. It's cooler here. Shadier. You see people gathering reeds, scraping fish, rinsing pots. Someone stares at you for a moment, then looks away, as if acknowledging that, yes, you are the least useful person here, but also the quietest. So that's something. A mother is teaching her daughter how to twist reeds into a basket. The girl is all fingers and questions. The mother is all patience. You watch them in silence until they start to blur together in the light. You don't want to leave. But the river is too calm, the voice is too soft, and the breeze has a way of closing your eyes for you. Obscure cultural tidbit. There's evidence that Poverty Point residents heated their food using clay balls baked in fire pits, which retained heat long enough to cook small game or stews. Imagine a prehistoric crockpot, but chunkier and with more trial and error. A dragonfly lands on your knee, stays, then buzzes off. You think about the girl, the stone bead, the silent mound rising behind you. And for a moment everything feels very still, not dead, not gone, just waiting for you to notice. The sun dips below the horizon, turning the sky into a bruised peach. The river sighs contentedly. You feel like you're holding your breath, but you aren't. The darkness holds nothing but twinkling stars and the sound of crickets. If this were a dream, you wouldn't dare move, afraid to wake yourself up. The night is filled with the whisper of wind through the tall grasses, the hoot of an owl, the splash of a fish in the dark water. Somewhere near you, a twig snaps. You start, straining to listen, nothing. The darkness presses close, cozy and kind. The moon, a sliver of pearl in the velvet sky, casts long, distorted shadows. The ridges seem to writhe and twist, becoming phantoms in the gloom. You pull your blanket tighter around you, hugging your knees to your chest. Fear gives way to fascination. This darkness isn't empty, it's brimming with secrets. You imagine the site during its heyday, bustling with activity, filled with voices and laughter. What stories could these shadows tell if they could speak? What dreams danced behind those flickering firelight faces? The river flows steadily on, serenading the darkness with its ancient song. The moon climbs higher, bathing the landscape in its eerie glow. You're not sure how long you stay there, nestled in the darkness, letting the night envelop you. Time seems to stand still, or maybe it's the darkness that has no use for it. When you finally realize the next day has already started, it's going to be hard to leave, but leave you must. You've got a long walk ahead of you. You rise stiffly, brushing dirt and leaves from your clothes. The darkness is still deep, but the first hint of dawn is beginning to paint the eastern sky. As you walk, the darkness around you seems to lift, revealing the full extent of Poverty Point, the ridges, the mounds, the plaza, all bathed in the soft light of early morning. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and dew-kissed grass. You take a deep breath, feeling invigorated. You're not sure if it's the fresh air or the thought of the day ahead that puts a spring in your step. The sun rises higher, chasing the shadows away. The colors intensify, the sky turning from soft pastels to brilliant hues of blue and orange. The river shimmers like a band of molten gold. You reach the river and pause, taking in the majestic sight. The water is calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. The sun beats down warmly on your face. You can hear the buzz of insects and the distant call of a bird. You're not sure if it's time to go or if you could stay here forever. The beauty of the place holds you captive. You want to soak in every moment, but you know you must move on. You turn and begin your journey home. The path ahead is uncertain, but you're filled with a newfound energy, ready to embrace whatever comes next. The experience of being alone in such a profound place has left an indelible mark on you. You carry with you the whispers of the wind through the grasses, the haunting calls of nocturnal creatures, and the solemn grandeur of the ancient mounds. The solitude has been a teacher, revealing the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of nature. You're grateful for the time spent here, knowing that it will forever be a sanctuary etched in your memory. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time and solitude. If you enjoyed this experience, please consider supporting the channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing these immersive historical tales to life. Until next time, farewell. The sky is shifting now, fading toward copper like an old coin polished by time. Shadows stretch lazily across the ridges. You find yourself walking back along the familiar path, your footprints soft and the clay almost apologetic. The people around you are winding down too. Tools are being set aside, fires stoked, clay beads rubbed between fingers as though memory lives in them. A man leans against a tree, eyes half closed, chewing on something he won't share. You nod, he doesn't nod back. Fair. As you stroll past a row of low huts, you notice a group gathered around a cooking pit. The air smells like roasted fish and crushed herbs. It's not bad. You inch closer, hoping for a second-hand whiff of history. Someone laughs, an older woman with a laugh like gravel and honey. She's telling a story. The others sit silently, except for the occasional snort or amused eye roll. You don't know the words, but the rhythm is universal. It's the story your grandmother told that her grandmother heard. Different names, maybe, but the same punchline. Humans have always been a little ridiculous. One major historical fact. Poverty Point is one of the earliest known examples of large-scale organized labor in North America. Built before writing, before metal, before even the idea of centralized government. And yet here they are, coordinated, efficient, and only slightly sunburned. You settle down at the edge of the circle. No one minds. A small dog, if you can call it, that curls up beside your foot. It has the energy of a possum with a to-do list. You like it immediately. The fire crackles. The stars begin to argue about who gets to shine first. You tilt your head back and think about the people who will one day dig all this up. The confusion, the theories, the papers with titles like Reassessing Early Mississippian, Sociopolitical Networks in Pre-Ceramic Archaic Aggregation Centers. You chuckle softly and the dog sighs. Obscure tidbit, the Poverty Point builders may have used plumb bobs and sight lines to lay out the massive site with astonishing precision without metal tools or measuring tapes. Just clever humans with string, sticks, and probably a lot of arguing. The conversation around the fire shifts to music. Someone produces a flute-like object, a bone hollowed and carved with gentle holes like freckles. The notes are uneven but sweet. It sounds like the wind telling a secret. You close your eyes. Historians still debate whether Poverty Point had a centralized authority or was organized communally. No evidence of kings, no great halls or graves full of gold. Just order. Just cooperation. Just a long, steady rhythm of baskets, stones, and silent understanding. The stars are winning now. One by one, they pierce the darkening sky like tiny fires from other lives. The wind is cooler. The dog is snoring. And your body feels soft, almost like you're made of clay yourself, left to dry in the warm twilight. Tomorrow, the baskets will return. The river will flow. The mounds will wait. But tonight you just rest. You wake to the insistent chirp of insects. Sunlight spills through the trees in golden fingers. You crack open an eye, then the other. The fire has died. The cooking pit is cold. The dog is gone. For a moment, you're disoriented, not knowing where you are or how you got there. Then it all comes flooding back. The mounds, the people, the rhythmic drone of hammers on stone. You stretch, feeling the pleasant ache of muscles that haven't been used in what feels like forever. As you rise, you notice a small pile of pebbles arranged in a circle at the edge of the fire pit. They look purposeful, like the remnants of some kind of ceremony. You bend down to pick one up. Smooth, gray, nothing special. Yet something about the way it fits in your palm makes you hesitate. This rock isn't going anywhere. You stand up, tucking the stone in your pocket for safekeeping. You don't know why, but you feel a sudden urge to explore. So you do. You walk away from the camp, heading deeper into the heart of the ancient city. As you weave between the mounds, you can still hear the distant hum of activity, the murmur of voices, and the rhythmic thwack of tools. Everywhere you look, there are signs of a society living vibrantly, purposefully, their lives measured by the rising and setting of the sun, the cycles of planting and harvest. Poverty Point wasn't just a place of work, it was a home, a community. And even after all these centuries, you can feel the echoes of laughter, the warmth of their fires, the shade of their communal shelters. You come to a wide plaza, maybe used for ceremonies or gatherings, maybe just an open space to sit and watch the sunset. At the far end is a mound, not the same as the others, smaller, steeper, more like a pyramid than a dome. You climb to the top, finding a flat stone to sit on. From here you can see everything. The grid of ridges stretching as far as the eye can see. The river snaking through the landscape like a silver thread. The forest rising in the distance, dark and brooding, hiding its secrets close. You breathe deeply, feeling the sun warm your skin, the wind tousle your hair. For a moment, you're part of this place. Part of something bigger than yourself, connected to generations past and future. In your hand, the stone feels cool and smooth. You bring it up, letting the sunlight catch its edges. In the light, it shimmers, almost glowing. It's just a rock, really, nothing special. Yet somehow it feels charged with history, imbued with the spirit of this place. You look out over the endless ridges and whisper a thank you, a hello, a goodbye, a prayer. The words don't matter. What does matter is the connection, the feeling that even across the vast chasm of time, you're not alone. Slowly you make your way down the mound, careful not to disturb the ancient stones. At the bottom, you pause, turning to get one last look at the view. But as you turn, you see something new, a flash of color tucked into the base of the mound. You bend down to investigate, brushing away loose dirt to reveal a small collection of objects. There's a pendant made of bone, intricately carved with what looks like a bird or a fish. A broken arrowhead, its edges worn smooth by centuries of handling. And nestled in the center, a single copper earring, glinting in the sunlight like a lost memory. You pick it up, turning it over in your hands. It's just a piece of metal, really, nothing special. And yet in your hands it feels charged with history, imbued with the spirit of this place. You stand up, tucking the earring into your pocket for safekeeping. You don't know why, but you feel a sudden urge to return to the camp. As you walk, you can't help but look at the landscape differently. The trees seem older, wiser, their roots running deep in the earth. The river seems deeper, its currents laden with stories. And the mounds seem to hum with a hidden energy, a testament to the ingenuity and spirit of the people who built them. When you reach the camp, you're surprised to find someone waiting for you. An older woman, her face lined with wrinkles that tell stories of her own, smiles at you knowingly. Without a word, she leads you to the fire pit where a fire is already burning. You sit down, warming your hands in the flames. The woman reaches out, placing a small basket in front of you. Inside, you find a collection of small objects, each one seemingly insignificant on its own. But in the context of this place, they take on a new meaning. There's a hammerstone, its surface worn smooth by countless blows. A pestle, its end carved into a crude human face. And a small piece of pottery, its rim decorated with a simple geometric pattern. The woman looks at you, her eyes filled with understanding. She doesn't need to say anything, you understand. These aren't just artifacts. They're tokens of a shared humanity, a connection to the past that transcends time itself. As the sun begins its slow descent, you realize it's time to leave. You gather up your things, the rocks and the earrings, the hammerstone and the pestle, the pot and the clay beads. They're heavy in your hands, not because they're made of precious metals or jewels, but because they're made of memories. Memories of a people long gone but not forgotten. You turn to the woman wanting to say something, anything, but the words won't come. You nod instead, thanking her for her hospitality, for her wisdom, for her patience. She nods back, her eyes filled with kindness. You know that when you leave this place, you'll carry a piece of it with you always. The feel of the sun on your skin, the sound of the river in your ears, the spirit of the mounds in your heart. As you walk away from Poverty Point, you look back one last time. The sky is beginning to darken, the stars emerging one by one until the whole sky is a sea of twinkling pinpricks. You know that somewhere up there, among those stars, are the spirits of the people who lived here so long ago. And for a moment you feel connected to them, linked together by the invisible bonds of humanity. You continue on your journey, leaving Poverty Point behind you, but taking its lessons with you. When I first started writing this series, I wasn't sure where it would go. I mean, we're 10 episodes in now and I still don't know for sure. But I do know that wherever this path leads next, it's gonna be wild. And with Season 2 comes a change to our format. We're keeping the things I know you love about the series, the weird facts, the unexpected connections, the surprising ways that big history and small history intersect. But we're adding some new stuff too, including more opportunities for me to flex my dramatic reading muscles. So get ready for more ridiculous voices, sound effects, and frankly, shenanigans. I'm very excited about this new season, and I hope you are too. But before we dive in, I need to send a huge thank you to everyone who watched, listened, commented, and shared last season. I'm especially grateful to our supporters, whose names you can see right here. If you'd like to join their ranks, you can learn more at our support page. Now let's do this thing. By midday, the heat settles in like an unwanted uncle. Loud, damp, and in no rush to leave. The activity slows. People move less urgently now. Tasks shift indoors. Even the dog has disappeared, presumably to seek shade and shame. You take shelter beneath a low awning woven from reeds and bark. Inside, a woman is shaping something small. Tiny ridges and grooves, coaxed from a lump of clay no bigger than your fist. You blink and realize it's a figurine. A plump torso, headless, limbless, peaceful. It's the first piece of sculpture you've seen here. Not functional, not a weapon, not a tool, just form. You glance at a nearby pile of similar pieces, some burned, some broken. Some shaped like humans, others like owls or stylized animals, none identical, none labeled. No artist's name, no grand explanation. Just made, then discarded. Like the whisper of an idea too small to keep. Major historical fact. These are known as Poverty Point objects, or PPOs, because apparently archaeology needs acronyms too. Thousands have been found small clay figurines and odd shapes thought to have ceremonial, symbolic, or possibly even culinary purposes. Yes, culinary. Some archaeologists believe they were used to regulate cooking temperatures in pits like hot stones, but cuter. You try to picture that. You've just finished shaping an effigy of your ancestral grandmother, and 10 minutes later, someone drops it in a stew. The line between sacred and practical is clearly thinner than it looks. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some figurines have tiny grooves that might represent scarification marks, hairstyles, or clothing. Others are so abstract they resemble modern art sculptures. Makes you wonder if someone back then was just vibing. The woman shaping the figure hums a slow, off-key tune. You don't recognize it, but you hum along anyway. She doesn't stop you. Together you create nothing useful, just meaning. Outside, the air thickens, a hawk circles lazily overhead. Somewhere, a baby wails, then goes silent again. The world contracts, folds into the hum of insects and the rustle of woven mat walls. Inside this hut, time is soft. History curls around itself like a sleeping fox. Historians still debate whether these figurines were religious artifacts, toys, or early attempts at brand identity. Imagine a whole town agreeing, let's all sculpt tiny headless torsos. That'll show the neighbors we've got style. You stay until the shadows shift again. until the woman sets down her clay, rubs her hands clean, and nods toward the doorway. The invitation is simple. Go now, but come back later. You do. Because you're starting to feel like you live here, and honestly, it's not so bad. When you arrive back home, you're not sure how much time has passed. You could check your phone, but what's the point? It's probably just showing you missed calls from people who want something from you. Time to disconnect from that life, at least for a little while. This place is different. There are rules, sure, but they seem unwritten. Don't touch the hot rock. Share food with your neighbor. Don't hog the fire pit when there are children trying to keep their toes warm. Listen to elders. Help a stranger who seems lost. Don't litter. Maybe those rules aren't unwritten. Maybe they're just ungoogled, unbinged, without internet or TV. People here rely on face-to-face conversation. They tell stories, jokes, news. A boy walks by carrying 2 buckets of water. He tells you about his dog, which hasn't barked once during your visit, not even when the goats approached. How does he do it? The boy shrugs. You think of your own dog and feel a twinge of longing. Another family member is missing too, your phone. Where did it go? Back in the city, it would buzz in your pocket with every notification. Now you have to actively remember that it exists. At first, it's kind of nice. You remember that you have a dentist appointment in 2 weeks. You remember to call your mom on Saturday. You remember you promised to send Aunt Louise that weird chain email she asked for. The rest of the day unfolds slowly. An old man leans against his hoe. 2 women sort through baskets of brightly colored cloth. You offer to help, but they shake their heads. There's a rhythm to their work, and you wouldn't want to disrupt it, so you find something else to do instead. Later, after you've finished your work, you gather around the fire pit with the others. You don't know their language, but they don't seem to mind. One woman rum family tree. She shows you a necklace with a pendant shaped like a bird. Her granddaughter leans close, whispering translation into your ear. This necklace belonged to her great-grandmother, she says. But that woman, that great-great-grandmother, is also your great-great-grandmother. The 2 of you share a smile, a connection across generations, across families, across 1,000 years. You wonder if she ever got tired of people asking her about the necklace, about her stories. You wonder if she ever wanted to be left alone. Then you realize, of course she did. But that's not the point of family, is it? It's not about being left alone. It's about belonging. After a while, the family gathers up its things and prepares to leave. You stand up to go with them, but one of the men puts a hand on your shoulder. He smiles. It's time for you to rest, he says. Your great-great-grandmother's necklace feels heavy on your chest. You know what time it is. It's storytelling time. You sit back down, and though you don't understand the words, you understand the cadence of the language, the lilt and the pauses. The man gestures wildly, then leans close to you conspiratorially. His voice drops to a whisper. He tells you about a hero who ventures into the forest and encounters a fearsome monster. As the monster approaches, the hero stands his ground, raises his sword, and faces his doom. The crowd leans forward, entranced. You lean forward, entranced. Then the man pauses. He looks at you puzzled. He gestures wildly again. You clear your throat. It's okay, you say continue, and though you don't understand the words, you understand the story. The man grins and resumes his tale. When the first rays of sunlight hit your face, you know it's time to go. You hug the old man, thanking him for the hospitality. He pats your back awkwardly. His wife hands you a length of colorful cloth, a reminder of her smiling face. You tuck it into your bag, then turn to leave. The villagers wave goodbye. Their dog barks once, just once. And you swear you hear the faintest meow from somewhere inside the house? If you've ever strolled through a shopping mall, you might have noticed the fountain in the middle. The kind with the cascading water and the mosaic tiles and the strategically placed benches. And if you're like me, you probably thought, well, that's nice. I wonder if this fountain is an art installation or if there's a Starbucks underneath it. But also I bet there's some mall Santa around here somewhere, and I need to get him to give me a list of all the things he knows the kids want so I can buy them for Christmas. Okay, maybe that last part was just me. But if you were wandering through that same fountain court at the peak of summer in 2000 BC, you might have noticed something very different. Because instead of fountains and Starbucks, there would be rows and rows of houses made out of clay and thatch. All told, more than 700 of them. And outside those houses, mosaic tiles and cascading water, too. Well, sort of. You see, in the year 2000 BC, you wouldn't be at the mall. You'd be at what we call Poverty Point today. And instead of getting ready for Black Friday, you'd be preparing for planting season. In prehistoric North America, Poverty Point was the biggest settlement around. We're talking a whopping 8 city blocks big. And the people who lived there didn't spend their days browsing the racks at Old Navy, they spent them farming. Lots and lots of plants. So much so that the fields surrounding Poverty Point are considered the oldest known complex agricultural system in North America. Major historical fact, archaeologists found traces of 14 domesticated plants here, including squash, sunflowers, and a type of bean. They also grew the first corn in the region. Oh, and they weren't hunting and gathering anymore either. Nope, this was a full-fledged town. With permanent housing, specialized tools, and a focus on agriculture, this wasn't seasonal. These people stayed put. So when spring rolled around, there wasn't a mad dash to finish building whatever you had started in the fall. Instead, there was a calm sense of routine. Everyone knew what needed to be done. It was almost like they'd been doing it forever because, well, they kind of had. Major historical fact. Archaeological evidence suggests that people had been living at Poverty Point continuously for more than 1,000 years. That's a long time. That means you might have moved there as a small child and died there with your hair just as gray. The people at Poverty Point were never really sure why they kept coming back. Maybe it was the fertile soil or the dependable Flint Creek nearby, or the fact that the nearby Red River acted as a highway and a trading route. Whatever the reason, they did. Generations upon generations. And each generation helped build up the town a little more. Each person only had to move a few baskets of dirt to make a difference. Major historical fact. At its peak, Poverty Point was home to 2,000 to 3,000 people. That's a lot of people for 3000 BC, but it wasn't a democracy. Poverty Point was ruled by a handful of elites who held most of the power. And those elites loved nothing more than showing off. Just take a look at their houses. The best ones belonged to the chiefs and were 5 rooms square. The rest of us got 2 rooms. Also, the richer you were, the closer your house was to the center of town. And the center of town, as you know, is where all the cool stuff was. Like the mounds. Now, mounds are kind of a broad term, so let me explain. Technically, archaeologists have identified 7 major mounds at Poverty Point. Each one has a different purpose. There's the Plaza Mound, which had a flat top that may have supported a ceremonial platform. There's the Temple Mound, which was the tallest structure in town and possibly served as a burial site. And then there's the Dance Floor Mound. Obscure tidbit, historians don't actually call it the Dance Floor Mound. They just did here to make it easier. But it really has a much more poetic name, the Round Temple. Anyway, this mound was shaped like a circle. And according to legend, it's where the townspeople performed sacred rituals. Sometimes those rituals involve bloodletting, human sacrifice. Or so archaeologists think based on the bones they've found. Other times they involve dancing. And we have physical evidence of that. Historians compared wear patterns on the ground to patterns made by pottery from the time period, and it turns out they match up perfectly. So anyone who wanted to practice their pottery making could head to the Round Temple, throw their pots, then dance in the center of the room while holding a finished piece. Just try to make sure you don't drop it. That would suck. So we know some of the mounds were used for dancing and pottery making and sacrifices. But we don't know what the other 4 were for. In fact, we don't know anything about them. Right now, they're sitting right where archaeologists left them. That is, until recently. Did you catch that? Until recently? Yep, today archaeologists are excavating the mounds for the first time in almost 80 years. Why now? Well, a lot of it has to do with what they uncovered in 1960. See, back then, archaeologists found a strange object hidden under the Temple Mound. It looked like a human skull, except it wasn't quite right. As they dug deeper, they realized it was a mask. A wooden mask with human teeth set into it and 2 huge eye sockets. Historians still aren't sure what it means, but that's beside the point. What matters is that they decided to dig deeper. And what they found next was beyond their wildest expectations. Underneath the mask, they found an entire tomb filled with dozens of artifacts. There were copper ornaments, shell beads, animal bones, and the cremated remains of multiple people. Plus, the whole thing was lined with thousands of little pebbles that had been carefully arranged in a geometric pattern. The archaeologists named it the Great Gallery. And since then, it's become one of the most important discoveries in North American history. Major historical fact: the discovery of the Great Gallery changed the way we think about prehistory. Before the discovery, most scholars believed that complex societies couldn't exist without metals. Now they know better. The people at Poverty Point may not have had metal tools, but they were clearly capable of incredible feats of engineering. And judging by the size of the settlements, they must have been pretty good at farming too. But the question remains, why did they stop coming to Poverty Point? Eventually, the town was completely abandoned and turned into a giant mound. Most historians agree that it happened sometime between 1000 and 100 BC, nearly 2 millennia before the first Europeans arrived in North America. But why? Well, it could have been environmental. Maybe the climate changed, or the soil quality went downhill, or there was a devastating flood. Or it could have been social. Perhaps the people of Poverty Point migrated to new lands because of conflict or disease, or because a neighboring town seemed like a better option. For all we know, they simply woke up one day and decided to change their scenery. After all, they'd been studying the stars for centuries. Maybe they saw an eclipse and decided that meant it was time to move. Either way, that's what makes places like Poverty Point so interesting. Even though archaeologists can't always figure out why the people who lived there did the things they did, they can figure out that they did them. Later that evening, you climb one of the mounds. Not the ridges, not the terraces. This is different, bigger, steeper, more deliberate. This is Mound, also known by its less glamorous nickname, Bird Mound, because from above it looks like a giant flying bird. Though, to be fair, no one from 1500 BC probably called it that. They likely had their own names, their own stories, their own inside jokes, none of which survived. So now we call it Bird Mound, because archaeology is, if nothing else, creatively literal. Major historical fact: Mound A is the largest earthwork at Poverty Point, measuring over 70 feet high and more than 700 feet across. It was built rapidly, possibly in just 90 days, according to soil studies. That's single quotes a lot of baskets. As you reach the top, panting slightly, the land opens up before you. The entire settlement spreads in quiet curves and shadows below. The ridges, the plazas, the little clay huts. The people like ants, moving with purpose you don't fully understand. From up here, the layout makes sense. The symmetry, the orientation, the careful alignment with the sun's path, everything has been placed just so. Obscure tidbit: some researchers think Poverty Point might have functioned as a giant calendar or observatory, with structures aligning to solstices or equinoxes. Others suggest sound acoustics whispers traveling across ridges, a prehistoric amphitheater for the stars. Or for stories, you sit on the mound's crest. The sun sets behind you. Your feet dangle over a civilization that built without bricks, ruled without writing, and vanished without much fuss. Someone sits down beside you. He offers you a dried piece of fish. You accept. It's chewy and strangely comforting. Historians still debate what Mound A was for: a temple, a burial site, a platform for speeches, or simply a show of communal strength. Maybe all of the above, maybe none. The records are silent because the people were. You watch as a woman lights a small fire at the plaza's edge, another joins her, then another, no dancing. No chants, just quiet flickers of flame in the falling dusk. You stay on the mound long after the sun is gone, listening to the soft sounds of a village at rest. And for a moment, even though you're thousands of years from home, you feel like you belong. Hello, Internet Explorer. Welcome back to Time Ghost. Today's adventure brings us to the mysterious ancient site of Poverty Point in Louisiana. But before we can explore it, we'll need to make a time machine. Well, that's easy. Just grab 3,000 pounds of prehistoric mud, 400 shovels, and 20 million baskets. Now let's go back 1700 years. It's about 1500 BCE, and you've traveled back in time to the peak of Poverty Point, a large fortified settlement built around 1600 BCE near present-day Epes, Louisiana. It is here that archaeologists have found some of the most compelling evidence of early American life, including what may be the oldest monumental earthworks in the United States. When you first arrive, you're struck by how green everything is. Lush vegetation blankets the landscape. Swamps fill the low ground. Cypress knees poke up from the murky water. Even the mounds themselves are covered in trees. But this thickness wasn't always here. In fact, when archaeologists first discovered Poverty Point in the 1950s, the area looked very different. Instead of forest, they found farmland. You see, the site had been plowed several times by local farmers who unknowingly unearthed artifacts like pottery shards, animal bones, and small stone tools. Upon realizing what they had found, these farmers did what any reasonable people would. They stopped farming and started excavating. With the help of scientists from Louisiana State University, they uncovered the remnants of what seemed to be a massive prehistoric city. Over the next few decades, many more excavations revealed the full scope of the site. Poverty Point is huge, covering 1,700 acres and featuring the most extensive collection of earthen mounds in the Mississippi River Valley. Its central area alone contains 50 human-made mounds, ranging from small burial platforms to large flat-topped pyramids. The biggest of these pyramids, Mound A, rises over 70 feet high, which is taller than the Great Pyramids of Giza. In total, archaeologists estimate that Poverty Point's builders moved over 20 million baskets of dirt to construct these mounds, and yet their purpose remains a mystery. We don't know what they were used for or why they were built in such precise shapes, and we have no idea who built them. Here's what we do know. Around 1600 BCE, somewhere between 20,000 and 50,000 people lived within the fortified walls of Poverty Point. Unlike other societies of the time, they didn't build houses out of wood or stone. Instead, they crafted small dome-shaped structures out of clay. These were roughly 18 feet in diameter and supported by wooden columns. Some were simple dwellings. Others served as storage space. The only permanent residents were probably members of the ruling elite, while most people probably lived elsewhere in smaller, more temporary homes. We also know that they kept pigs, dogs, and turkeys. They fished in the nearby lake and hunted animals like deer, bison, and mastodons. Between 1600 BCE and 1100 BCE, they created over 100 ceramic vessels, mostly small bowls and plates. They also chipped small stone tools and decorated them with copper ornaments. But despite all of these objects, we have no written records. None of their artwork features recognizable human figures. There are no statues or reliefs or even stylized line drawings. At Poverty Point, the only signs of humans are tiny footprints imprinted in the drying mud. And with no writing system to decipher, there's no way to tell who made those footprints or what their society was called. Archaeologists affectionately dubbed them the people of the mounds and went about uncovering their story. In addition to the dozens of mounds, they found a series of 45 semicircular ridges radiating outward from the center of the settlement. These weren't natural geological features. They were carefully constructed over a period of decades. Each ridge was originally topped with a wooden structure about 2 feet high, which acted as a retaining wall to hold back the piled-up dirt. Over time, these walls decomposed, leaving behind a series of perfectly curved embankments. What were they for? Nobody knows. But they remain one of the most unique features of Poverty Point. Finally, there are the animal shapes. All across the site, archaeologists have found figurines depicting birds, turtles, snakes, and fish. They were made from clay, copper, stone, and even bone. They range in size from a few inches to several feet long. But despite their prevalence, we don't know what they represent. Were they religious icons, totems, decorative art? Once again, the records are silent. The question of who built Poverty Point has an even more frustrating answer. Almost certainly, the people who built these great works of pre-Columbian engineering were part of the larger Mississippian culture. But unfortunately, the term Mississippian refers to a broad spectrum of people living in the Mississippi River Valley between 800 and 2,000 years ago. They share common traits but were never united under one banner. When archaeologists talk about the Mississippian culture, they could be referring to hundreds of different groups. And with no written language to distinguish them, we have no idea what any of them called themselves. So what happened to the people of the Mounds? Well, sometime around 1100 BCE, they disappeared. By 1000 BCE, the Mounds had been abandoned. The settlement had been burned. And within a few hundred years, the entire region was completely deserted. But here's the thing, nobody knows why. There are theories, of course. Maybe a drought killed off the local plants and animals, forcing the inhabitants to abandon their homes. Perhaps they were attacked by the neighboring Caddo people or the Choctaw. It's even possible that a large animal like a mastodon stampeded through the town and ruined everything. But ultimately, there's no way to know for sure. For all we know, the people of Poverty Point simply grew tired of living in one place and decided to pick up and move somewhere new. In 1968, excavations wrapped up at Poverty Point. Since then, the site has been opened to the public as a state historic site and UNESCO World Heritage Center. Unfortunately, modern development threatens the area. Highway construction has already destroyed part of the settlement, and archaeologists fear that the remaining mounds may be bulldozed to make way for more roads. If that happens, it would be a tragedy for American history. Poverty Point is one of the earliest examples of monumental architecture in the United States. It proves that sophisticated societies existed in North America long before Columbus arrived. Whoever built Poverty Point planned their city with astonishing care. They constructed straight ridges and aligned them with the cardinal directions. They built large mounds and meticulously shaped them into perfect pyramids. They created works of art and scattered them throughout the landscape. And for all of our fancy technology, we have no idea how they did any of it. Maybe one day we'll find a clay tablet or a copper scroll detailing the origins of the Poverty Point people. Maybe we'll discover an ancient text explaining the meaning of their art and architecture. But until then, we won't know their stories, and that's okay. Sometimes the greatest adventures are the ones where we don't know where they're going, but we know they're worth taking. Morning again, and it smells like wood smoke and damp moss. Somewhere nearby, someone is grinding something, seeds maybe, or nuts. You hear the hollow thunk of stone against stone, slow and steady, like a metronome from before time had clocks. Today's task? Trade, because while Poverty Point may be surrounded by forest, it is not cut off from the world. You make your way down to the plaza, the wide, flattened center of the settlement, a kind of open-air town square where nobody sells hot dogs, but everybody comes for something. Blankets are spread out, baskets full of shells, bones, pigments, rows of fishhooks carved from deer antler, long glittering slabs of stone you've never seen before, black, glossy, impossibly smooth. That last one is obsidian, and here's the thing, there is no obsidian in Louisiana. Major historical fact. Poverty Point's inhabitants acquired materials from across the continent, obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, copper from the Great Lakes, soapstone from the Appalachians, and chert from the Ozarks. Their trade network extended over 1,200 miles, all without ships, wheels, or draft animals. Someone hands you a pendant made of greenish stone. It's warm from the sun. You rub your thumb over the smooth carved grooves, a symbol, maybe, or just decoration, hard to say. Historians still debate what exactly was traded at Poverty Point. Was it a centralized hub like a prehistoric Wall Street? Or more of a sacred flea market where pilgrims brought offerings in exchange for status trinkets? The truth may lie somewhere in between or beyond. Obscure tidbit. Among the more puzzling finds at Poverty Point are plummets, teardrop-shaped carved stones that look like fishing weights. But there's no evidence they were ever used for fishing. Some say they were symbolic. Others say they were status objects, or maybe just really classy paperweights. For their invisible papers. You pass a group of children skipping stones toward the marsh. One of them has tied a feather to a stick and is waving it like a staff, future chief, or just very into birds. Across the plaza, a storyteller is gathering a small crowd. You inch closer. His voice is calm, hypnotic, melodic in its slowness. He weaves a tale about a serpent that swallowed the sun and had to be tricked into sneezing it back out with river smoke and roasted pecans. You're pretty sure that's not how physics works. But it's better than most podcasts. You sit, you listen, you trade a small clay bead for something you can't quite name. And for a while, there is nothing to do but exist in the gentle hum of human connection, prehistoric and yet somehow familiar. Later in the day, you wander toward the edge of the site, where the forest thickens and the shadows cool the air. You're following a faint path, overgrown but well-trodden, and soon you find them small mounds, half hidden beneath leaves and vines. Not as large as Mound A, not arranged in the perfect symmetry of the ridges, but deliberate nonetheless. You pause. Something about this place feels quieter than usual. Even the birds hush a bit. Major historical fact. Archaeologists have identified over 30 smaller mounds surrounding the Poverty Point complex. Their functions vary. Some may have been platforms, others possible burial sites. Many are yet unexcavated. The landscape holds more questions than answers. You crouch beside one of them, tracing your fingers through the soil. A tiny shard of fired clay peeks out, someone's broken pot, maybe, or part of a ceremonial item. Or, knowing your luck, ancient garbage. Historians still debate the total extent of Poverty Point. How many mounds exist? What boundaries define the site, and even how many people lived here at its peak? Estimates range from a few hundred to a few thousand, depending on which archaeologist you ask and whether they've had their coffee yet. Obscure tidbit. One smaller mound, known as Mound B, is almost perfectly symmetrical and thought to be one of the earliest constructed. Despite its modest size, some believe it held spiritual significance, possibly used for ritual burning or sky observation. Or it was a really great place to stand dramatically during sunset, hard to say. You climb to the top of the nearest smaller mound and sit again. From here, the trees rustle like whispers, insects drone. The scent of crushed mint rises as you shift your weight. A deer moves through the underbrush, elegant, quiet, ancient. It watches you for a moment, then decides you're not important enough to flee from. Fair enough. The sun begins to slant toward gold. The ridges in the distance catch the light just so. And suddenly, they don't look like earth at all. They look intentional, like something carved with care. Like memory made physical. Like someone once wanted to be remembered, not by name, but by effort. You stay until the light shifts again and the ridges fade back into soft shadows. You wake the next morning with a crick in your back and a thin layer of dew on your eyelashes. The sounds of early movement ripple across the camp, low voices, gentle rustles of woven baskets, the thump of footsteps on dirt. Today is different. You've been asked to help with something big. You follow the others to the plaza, and from there, you're led to the wide, sloping ramp that ascends Mound AA. Major historical fact, Mound A, also called the Bird Mound, is the largest mound at Poverty Point, approximately 72 feet high and over 700 feet long. Built entirely by hand, it's estimated that construction required nearly 15.5 million basket loads of earth. It was likely completed within just 90 days, suggesting intense communal effort. That's right. 90 days, no bulldozers. No weekends off. Just woven baskets and determined feet. You glance up at the towering rise of earth. It doesn't look like a bird now, not from here. But from above, from the sky, it's shaped like one in flight, or maybe a hawk with outstretched wings, or maybe a giant wedge of symbolic mystery. The design is debated. Of course it is. Historians still debate what Mound A was for: a platform, a ceremonial stage, an offering to the skies. There's no burial found inside. No artifacts, just packed earth and a view that stretches forever. You begin your climb, barefoot and slow. The soil is warm beneath your soles. Grains of sand stick to your feet. Someone behind you hums a tune without words, a lullaby or a work song or both. Halfway up, you pause to catch your breath. The wind brushes against your cheek, light and dry. Below you, the ridges curve like ripples in the landscape. You recognize the places you've walked, the fire pit near the storyteller, the pathway where the deer watched you. The place where you traded for that pendant you've since lost in the folds of your tunic. And then you're at the top. It's flat, surprisingly so, a wide, open space. Someone hands you a bundle of woven reeds, fragrant and damp. It's part of a new construction, a platform, a shelter, no one says. You help place it carefully, align the edges. Step back, repeat, obscure tidbit. Recent soil analysis revealed that Mound AS construction began with a burn layer. The ground was intentionally scorched before building began. Some scholars think this might have been a form of ritual purification, or just an efficient way to kill weeds. You sit again at the top, this time with others, a quiet group. You pass a gourd filled with something sweet fermented maybe, or just overripe. You drink. It's not bad. It's not great. But it's warm and makes the sunset even softer than usual. There's laughter below, children running, throwing spears at shadows. An elder beats a drum made from stretched hide and hollowed log. The rhythm is slow, like a heartbeat after a long nap. You lie back on the mound. The stars arrive one by one, late to the party, but glorious. You don't talk. You just watch the sky stretch over Poverty Point, ancient and wide and still waiting to be understood. Morning again. Light filters through a haze of early fog, wrapping the mounds in silver mist, like the earth is trying to hide its own secrets just a little longer. You stretch, slowly, like someone whose muscles have memorized thousands of years of basket lifting. Your bones creak in ways that feel ancient. Today you're helping with trade preparation. There's a gathering, coming visitors from far-flung places. Some who travel for days by water, others by foot, with bundles of stone, shell, feathers, and stories strapped to their backs. Major historical fact: Poverty Point was one of the most significant prehistoric trade hubs in North America. Artifacts found at the site include jasper from the Appalachians, soapstone from the southeast, and flint from the Ohio River Valley, some coming from over 600 miles away. You're handed a cord-wrapped package inside, pieces of red jasper, polished until they catch the light like sunset frozen in stone. These will be traded for something you've never seen. Maybe copper. Maybe beads carved from whalebone. Maybe a story that doesn't translate. Down by the river, the first canoes arrive, long, shallow, carved from single trees. The paddlers are lean and silent. Their boats smell of smoke and salt and distance. You help unload goods with a quiet efficiency. Everyone knows what to do. It's not frantic, it's almost meditative. The rhythm of passing, placing, exchanging. Obscure tidbit: some of the stones used at Poverty Point, like galena, a shiny lead, or may have been crushed and worn as cosmetic shimmer, like prehistoric highlighter. Fashion apparently is eternal. Someone hands you a bundle of driftwood carvings in exchange for your jasper. You don't know what they mean, but they feel sacred, abstract forms with eyes scratched in strange places. You nod. No words are needed. Nearby, two people haggle over a pile of smoked fish. The trade ends with laughter, a clapping of shoulders, and the universal shrug of, close enough. You catch the scent of new spices, something earthy, something sharp. You follow it, slowly, through the crowd, until it leads you back to the storyteller, his fire still warm, his eyes knowing. You see, he says, this place is made of things you can't carry, and he's right. You don't remember the last time you held a thing that mattered more than the sound of someone's voice or the pattern of their shadow on a mound. The gathering has turned into a kind of quiet celebration. There's no calendar here, no marked holidays, no engraved dates, but everyone seems to know this is when it happens. When strangers become familiar, when trade becomes ceremony, when stories stretch later into the night and laughter drifts farther than usual. You walk through the central plaza, where fires flicker and faces glow. A drumbeat begins, soft and slow, like thunder practicing from far away. Dancers move in slow spirals. Not all at once and not perfectly, but beautifully. Some wear feathers. Others wrap painted hides around their waists. One child spins with their arms out like wings, laughing until they fall. Major historical fact: there is no evidence of written language at Poverty Point. Communication, cultural continuity, and memory were carried orally through ritual, storytelling, and performance. What survives is what was embodied and shared, not written and stored. You sit by a woman painting her arms with river clay white spirals on brown skin. She hands you a lump of damp earth and nods. You smear it across your hands. It feels cool, grounding. A slow reminder that you are mostly water and dust, just like this place. Someone offers you roasted nuts in a leaf pouch. You chew slowly, the crunch is satisfying. There's something honeyed in the taste. Or maybe just sweetened by the moment. Obscure tidbit, archaeologists found thousands of clay cooking balls at Poverty Point Small, intentionally heated spheres used to regulate cooking temperature. Some believe the people had no ceramic pots, so they cooked by heating these balls and placing them into earth ovens with food. You hear a flute, now sharp, reedy, hesitant at first, then growing bolder. It weaves around the dancers like smoke. A stranger sits beside you. He doesn't speak, but he hums a tune you almost recognize. You hum back. It's not perfect, but it feels ancient, or maybe timeless. Historians still debate whether these gatherings at Poverty Point were seasonal markets, spiritual festivals, or something else entirely. Was this a sacred pilgrimage site, a center of power? A giant camping trip with excellent snacks? You stretch out on the warm ground. Someone passes by, gently tapping your shoulder with a carved stick, a blessing, a joke? Hard to say. Above, the stars arrive again. They always do. And beneath them, the ridges curl like sleeping serpents. The mounds stand like questions the earth forgot to answer. And the people, your people, for now, move through it all like they've always belonged here. Because maybe they have. The gathering has turned into a kind of quiet celebration. There's no calendar here, no marked holidays, no engraved dates, but everyone seems to know this is when it happens. When strangers become familiar, when trade becomes ceremony, when stories stretch later into the night and laughter drifts farther than usual. You walk through the central plaza, where fires flicker and faces glow. A drumbeat begins, soft and slow, like thunder practicing from far away. Dancers move in slow spirals. Not all at once and not perfectly, but beautifully. Some wear feathers. Others wrap painted hides around their waists. One child spins with their arms out like wings, laughing until they fall. Major historical fact: there is no evidence of written language at Poverty Point. Communication, cultural continuity, and memory were carried orally through ritual, storytelling, and performance. What survives is what was embodied and shared, not written and stored. You sit by a woman painting her arms with river clay white spirals on brown skin. She hands you a lump of damp earth and nods. You smear it across your hands. It feels cool, grounding. A slow reminder that you are mostly water and dust, just like this place. Someone offers you roasted nuts in a leaf pouch. You chew slowly, the crunch is satisfying. There's something honeyed in the taste. Or maybe just sweetened by the moment. Obscure tidbit, archaeologists found thousands of clay cooking balls at Poverty Point Small, intentionally heated spheres used to regulate cooking temperature. Some believe the people had no ceramic pots, so they cooked by heating these balls and placing them into earth ovens with food. You hear a flute, now sharp, reedy, hesitant at first, then growing bolder. It weaves around the dancers like smoke. A stranger sits beside you. He doesn't speak, but he hums a tune you almost recognize. You hum back. It's not perfect, but it feels ancient, or maybe timeless. Historians still debate whether these gatherings at Poverty Point were seasonal markets, spiritual festivals, or something else entirely. Was this a sacred pilgrimage site, a center of power? A giant camping trip with excellent snacks? You stretch out on the warm ground. Someone passes by, gently tapping your shoulder with a carved stick, a blessing, a joke? Hard to say. Above, the stars arrive again. They always do. And beneath them, the ridges curl like sleeping serpents. The mounds stand like questions the earth forgot to answer. And the people, your people, for now, move through it all like they've always belonged here. Because maybe they have. The fire is lower now, just red coals and sleepy shadows. Most of the gathering is thinned out. Some people have wandered back to their camps, their ridges, their boats. Others lie scattered around the plaza, curled beneath blankets of bark fiber and hide, whispering final words or already breathing deep, slow breaths. You stay seated, watching the coals. A woman stirs something in a stone bowl, perhaps ground seeds or crushed shell beads, you're not sure. Her hands move with a rhythm that seems older than language. Major historical fact: the Poverty Point site includes one of the largest mounds in North America, Mound A. Constructed rapidly in an astonishingly short period, perhaps as little as 90 days. That's millions of basket loads of earth moved by hand. Still no sign of kings, armies, or whips? Just coordination, purpose. You walk one last slow lap around the mound's base. Even in the dark it looms, not threatening, but impossible. Like something the land grew itself. Your bare feet move over packed soil paths, past where traders laughed, past the clay balls cooling in their pits, past the dancer's spiral, past the flute's last note. You touch the earth again and think this place doesn't explain itself. Obscure tidbit: some scholars have found tiny owl-shaped pendants at the site, stylized, carved from stone. Were they charms? Markers of clan identity? Totems for vision in the dark? No one knows. But they are detailed, personal, and still hold their shape after 3,000 years. You hold a pebble in your palm and wonder who touched it last. A child? A priest? A woman with river clay on her arms? Scholars still debate whether the people of Poverty Point disappeared, migrated, or simply changed. The site was abandoned by around 1100 BCE, but the memory? It lingers like the last glow of coals. The night is full of sounds again. A breeze rustles cane. A nightbird calls once, then again. Something scurries in the grass, unseen. You lie down near the base of the mound and exhale slowly. The earth is warm. The sky is wide. And you are here at the center of something ancient and unanswered. You breathe out again, softer now. Your body sinks into the memory of this place, into the ground shaped by hands, into the soil softened by feet like yours, walking and walking and walking. Above you, the stars drift in slow procession, unhurried and unbothered. They've seen this place through fog and fire and flood, through laughter and silence, through questions that still haven't found their answers. The mounds rise gently around you like the edges of a shallow bowl, holding you, cradling the stillness. Each ridge curls like a quiet wave, frozen in time. Or perhaps still moving, so slowly the eye can't see. You hear your own breath. You hear the distant ripple of the Mississippi, patient and unchanged. In this moment, there are no roads, no towers, no electricity humming in the walls. There's just you, the clay, the sky, and the ghosts of people who lived without needing a name carved in stone. You feel their quiet, not as absence, but as presence. The way silence fills a room, or how a story lingers after the last word. They built something massive without kings. They gathered without monuments. They lived without cities, and still they left behind curves in the land so large they can only be seen from the sky. You close your eyes and imagine the heat of the fire, the cool of the clay, the rhythm of baskets and footsteps, the beat of the drum that's probably still echoing somewhere under the ground. And maybe, just maybe, you hear the faintest flute in the wind. Sleep now, you've walked the ridges. You've stood on the mound. You've seen what the earth remembers when everything else is gone. And it remembers you too. Good night.